Yeah, I'm live as I'm getting situated here. Yeah, live. How you doing? It is July the 20th. Yeah, special day. I'll talk about that later, but it is. It's a special day. Yeah. Um, really a lot more happened this week than you would imagine. And it's some of it's good. It's all kind of all good. Jesus. So, yeah, I'm doing this, and then right after I'm done with this video, I have to go to Carlisle, which is about a 30-minute drive for me, because I'm getting together with a bunch of people that I met at an LGBTQ plus function a few weeks ago, and we're gonna role play. They want to play D&D. I'm not a D&D player. In fact, I've never played D&D, and this is coming from someone who gamed constantly for like 35 years, because I've never really wanted to play D&D. I've always been kind of like, there's so many other games out there. Why do you want to keep playing D&D? Why don't we try something different? So I'll go out there. I'm going to take my computer with me. I'm going to make a character. But like I was telling my friend Lynette just a few minutes ago, probably less than 15 minutes ago, it sounds like they're going to want to start getting together on Monday nights, and I can't do Mondays until November because Derby. Yeah, Derby. I can't. Yeah, I'm getting back into Monday night practices here soon. So, job front. I won't say I have anything waiting for me on the job front, but I've actually spoken with several recruiters this last week. One submitted my application for a job with the state again. And then I actually talked with a couple of recruiters, had lunch with them yesterday, and they said they were going to look for something. They're still looking for stuff. I'm trying to convince people I don't want to do programming anymore. And of course, we have a lot of programming jobs. I'm like, but I don't want to do programming. Yeah. I even kept telling him, I said, I need a job. I need something within like the next 30 days. Case closed. I need something in 30 days. I don't give a shit what it pays. Just get me a job. I don't want to be homeless in September, which looks like it could be quite likely. Don't need that shit. So, yeah, but it was good. We've talked. I've been applying for more and more jobs. As I told one headhunter, I feel almost like I'm giving up on the struggle because, they don't want you because you're 62, or they don't want me because they can tell I'm trans. I don't know. I just I wish I could win the lottery. Win the lottery. Give me like $10 million. I'll take 7 after tax. I'll take like 6 after taxes, and I'll be good. I could live on $6 million for the rest of my life, because the rest of my life is really only going to be about 15 years at the most, I think. Don't hate me for saying that, but it's true. As I like to remind people, I'm closer to the end of my life than I am the beginning. So it's just that you never know when that end is coming. Could come today. Can't tell. Anyway, so that's where that's at. And as far as writing is concerned, I plan on doing 2 recaps the end of this week, because tomorrow is the last episode of Fear the Walking Dead before they take like the summer off and then come back with the last 8 episodes or so. So I'm going to do last week's episode and tomorrow's episode as a twofer. Like, here you go. Because really, Fear used to do that. They would bump right up into The Walking Dead, and they would run like their last 2 episodes back to back. They used to do that a lot. I should say not a lot. They did it the first couple of seasons. And considering there's only been 5 seasons so far, that's kind of a lot. It's almost 50%. So, I'll take that. But I did write kind of a real long article about the rushing, we're going to rush storming of Area 51 and why it would not work. And not because so many people are going to die. I mean, I already took into consideration, I think I said there would probably be 75% casualties. But if you had 700,000 people really, show up and rush the place, you could still get 150,000 through. Whether they would live very long after that, that's another question. But like I pointed out, they're probably, you're not going to find anything. The base, if you did manage to get through, the base would be on lockdown. And there would be several different lines of defense you would have to go through. It's never going to happen. There's no aliens in Area 51. We all know they're at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So. But I did dip into a bit of UFO lore that I remember, like where's Hangar 18 and all this other shit. And talked about the base at Dulce, New Mexico, which is, fabricated, but there's still a lot of people that believe it exists. I should actually do an article on the top 10 UFO things that have happened. Which is fairly easy to do. I could write a humorous article on that. Roller derby. Oh my God. This week, I don't know about where you're at, but the Berg has been under an extreme heat watch now for a couple of days. Today it's supposed to get up to 98. It was actually supposed to get to 100 today. I want to see if they've revised that. They're saying 97, tomorrow 98. But yesterday at 7 p.m., the temperature index was 107. It was still 92 outside, but once you cranked in the humidity, it felt like 107 outside. At 7 p.m. last night, I was just holy fuck. Come on. It's supposed to start cooling off Monday because I guess we're going to have a line of thunderstorms roll through here. And that's going to cool stuff off considerably. But yeah, nobody wants to go out and do anything right now. You don't want to go outside if you don't have to. And it doesn't really cool off a lot in my apartment. You can tell that the AC is struggling to keep up with the heat. So it's cooler than if I was sitting out on my porch, on my balcony, I should say. But yeah. I'm not really staying real cool, so I'm just sitting around and as little as possible trying to stay cool. But I had practice twice this week in a building that has no air conditioning. I don't know what the temperature was inside the Overlook. None of us know, but it was hot. The Dutch oven definitely lived up to its reputation, and those of us who braved practice on Wednesday and Thursday night, oh man, I was struggling Wednesday night. I really was. I was struggling Wednesday night, and I hydrated well both days. I drank 80 ounces on Wednesday. I drank 100 ounces on Thursday before going to practice, and then still drank another 45 ounces of water while I was at practice. No bullshit here. I was hydrated. I just was struggling with the heat. I was struggling to keep up. And Wednesday night, it was knocking me out. I was at one point toward the end when I was playing Jammer. I hit the wall and I'm pushing on them, and all of a sudden you start getting that like gray stuff on the sides of your vision where it's coming in. And my head was swimming a little bit, and I took a hit and got knocked out of bounds, and I went down. And I just like laid there and went, and I said, I'm done. And even Dash came over, she's like, Nomi, are you okay? I said, yeah, I said I was starting to gray out there. I said I was starting to get woozy. And she's like, just sit there and relax, Yeah, Wednesday night I had to block Dash one-on-one, and she's trying to show me how to be a better blocker, because when I'm one-on-one with somebody, I'm really not that good. I have a tendency to turn my body, because what I'm really trying to do, and it's the same thing I told Deadpool Thursday, I'm not a confident one-on-one blocker because of my plow. So I tend to twist my body a little bit to get in a position where I can anchor myself. And it ends up putting me in a disadvantaged position because I can't move backwards fast enough and somebody can go in around behind me. And I'm trying to break that. And Dash was showing me how to do this on Wednesday night. And she would one-on-one block me, and I would one-on-one block her. And at one point, she got me into a solid block. And I held her for about 30. I was doing my best to hold her for probably about 30 seconds. And you're going to go, 30 seconds? That ain't a lot. Yeah. You come out and do it. You come out and get on a pair of skates and you do it. Because after it was done, we actually went over and we were like sticking our head in this bag because I was like breathing real hard, sweating all over the place. And she's like, you've never had to go one-on-one with me before, have you? And I said, no. I said, that was the first time. I said, and everybody knows you do that with Dash. And you're kind of in for a world of hurt. Because she's real good at plowing. And I recognize where I need to strengthen myself. I tried doing eggshells and to practice my slow plows, and I just don't have the strength in my groin muscles that I should. So after I go D&D stuff, I'm going to go work out, and I'm going to work on the abductor machines to strengthen those muscles. I don't think I need a lot of leg work. I need to work on my abductors because the plows are where it's at. And I need to get that better. But it was like Deadpool. And I had trouble. We were tracking Thursday. I have trouble with that. I'm not as fast as, someone who's 25 years old. So rolling back on someone while they're moving is a difficult thing for me to do still. I'm getting better at it, but really it's tough for me. I haven't gotten to that point where it's all instinct. You shouldn't work as if you're thinking about where the jammer is going to go. You should just go with her. And I'm learning how to do that. And Deadpool said something to me. She was coaching Thursday night. She said, you want to be perfect. She said, nobody is perfect. You need to stop that. She said, nobody is perfect. We're always working on getting better. And you need to think that. You really do need to think that. You are going to get better, but you're never going to be perfect. Stop trying to be perfect. And it is true. I do have this thing where it's like, I got to be the best. While at the same time, I kind of know I'm not going to be the best. But I did, as we used to say in the travel team, Woomer was coaching Wednesday night, and as I was skating off to D gear, I kind of said, man, I can't believe it. I should be a lot stronger than this. I said, I can't believe, I'm this bad. And she goes, not everyone has a good practice. You don't have a good practice every time you come out. And I said, yeah, but I used to be on a travel team. I was on a travel team this year. And she goes, that means nothing. She goes, so you were on a travel team. Everybody still has a bad practice. And, leave it on the track. I did. I left it on the track. I did not sit there and beat myself up after it happened. It was just like, practice is done. Go home, bathe, clean up, go to bed. And I did the same thing Thursday night. It's like, where you got to work. Work. Don't beat yourself up over it. You will get better. I got 6 months before I got to try out for the Blitz again and get on the home team and playing a couple of bouts, playing some of the mixers. I got plenty of opportunities to play to get better. And that's what I need to do. So, leave it on the track. Don't beat yourself up. Don't like, that was the thing I did with hard. I would come home from practice crying, beating myself up all the fucking time. And I don't nearly do that as much with DDR. In fact, I'll catch myself doing it. And then I'll go, you need to stop right now. Don't do this to yourself. You know where you need work on it. Leave it at that. You know where you need work, leave it at that. And so home team season is starting up. And starting this coming Monday, in a 13-day period, I am going to be in 2 scrimmages and a game. Yeah. I'm actually going to be in a scrimmage in York on Monday night, and there's a bunch of us from DDR that are going down to it. It looks as if there's going to be like 40 players signed up. So everybody will get a chance to play. I think what will end up happening, they were even talking about playing like 3 halves. And they'll probably rotate people in and out because there's just a whole lot of us going down there. And then 2 days after that, on Wednesday, back at the Dutch Oven, we're going to do an unofficial learning scrimmage. And it's, I think it's actually going to be watched for some of the tots who still have to pass their scrimmage assessment. So that's really why we're getting it together. And it's funny because the high for that day is like 83, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, at night it won't be that bad in there. We'll be able to do it. Yeah, you're looking at it from the point of view, it's only going to be in the low 80s that day. Yeah, scrimmage is doable. We like to say that we work out in the oven, and then we go someplace where it's nice and air conditioned, and we're like, I have all this strength. And then on August the 3rd, which is 2 Saturdays from today, I am in a scrimmage. And it's actually not a scrimmage. It is their own Battle of the Freshies that they're going to run. Anyone with a year or less experience is in the Battle of the Freshies. So I signed up for it. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So that's up in Pottstown with the Schuylkill Valley Scream Queens. That's up in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And then 2 weeks after that, so really like within a 3-week period of time. And I think we're going to have one more scrimmage at DDR because I think it's right around the 16th is our last day we can actually be in the Dutch Oven, the Overlook, before they shut it down for a month before they resand the floor and do everything. But on the 17th, I'll be out at Two Rivers Roller Derby in Bethlehem for a fun scrimmage. From Woomer and I know Woomer's going. She signed up for it. I don't know if anybody else from DDR signed up for it. I signed up for it. And she told me, she says, it's a blast. I've done it before. You know, they do it to raise money. And she said, if you have cash with you, you can actually like pay officials to do stuff like, oh, look, there's 2 blockers out there in that pack. You know, here's $20. Make sure you give a penalty to the 2 biggest ones. But people in the audience can do the same thing. She said, you know, they'll do stuff like send people to the penalty box. You've got to actually run the jam in anti-derby direction, which she said, you know, screws people up real bad because you're trying to figure out how to play it anti-derby direction and stuff like that. And she said one of the things they'll have you do is they'll have the jammers wear pool inner tubes around their waist. And she said, she told me, she goes, I did that last year. She says, I was a jammer with the pool inner tube around my waist. And she says, it's so much fun because you just go flying into people. She said, you don't have to worry about back blocking. You just like fly into them. Ah! And you hit them. And she goes, it scatters blockers. You literally start scattering blockers when you're hitting them with an inner tube. And there's actually a picture on the page that had it, and they show a picture of a jammer with the inner tube around her waist. So it should be pretty interesting. So we're going to do that. And then 2 weeks after that, at the end of August, starts the Eastbound Throwdown, and we already have our blocks out. We know who's coming. We're actually having a team. Toronto is coming down, and Sailor City from Buenos Aires, Argentina, is actually going to be in the house. Yeah. They're one of the lower seeds, so we don't know how far they're actually going to go. But I forgot to check to see who's our number 1 seed. I know. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Who's our number 1 seed? I'm checking. Let's see. Our number 1 seed is actually going to be Naptown Roller Derby, and they're from Indianapolis, Indiana. Yeah. Our number 2 seed is Boston Roller Derby. Gee, I wonder what city they're from. Our number 3 seed is Detroit Roller Derby. I wonder where they're from. And then our number 4 seed is the Blue Ridge Roller Girls, and I believe they're from Asheville, North Carolina. And then the other people we have, the lowest seed we have is actually going to be Toronto Roller Derby. They're number 12, and they play Sailor City, who's actually number 5. Tri-City Roller Derby, I forget where they're from. They're playing Tampa. Madison Roller Derby is playing Ohio Roller Derby. I think Ohio Roller Derby is from, I want to say Akron. And then Columbia Roller Derby, I'm not sure if they're from, I think they're from South Carolina. And I think Ohio Roller Derby is actually from Columbus. But Columbia Roller Derby is going to play Gem City, who's from Dayton, Ohio. So that's our lineup. Tri-City, I think they're actually from Tampa, Florida, if I remember. No, we are playing Tampa. I forget who Tri-City's with. I have to go look, but I'm not going to look now. So, and I am working security. Yeah, I know what I'm going to be doing. I will be working security, so I'm going to be busy. It's going to be fun. We'll be there all 3 days, and then I'm probably like, as soon as I'm done working, get out of the T-shirt because we'll have an official T-shirt and a badge, and get out of the T-shirt when I'm off duty. And they told us to do that because they said if you aren't, hold on, I got somebody messaging me. If you aren't, people might continue to ask you questions and stuff while you're off duty. So if you're sitting there watching roller derby, and then people are like, hey, I need your help. And it's like, I'm off duty. So yeah, we go in the morning, we put on our official T-shirt, do our stuff, and then get out of our official T-shirt so we're not bugged the rest of the day. But I will probably be there like all day. Yeah, I'll probably be there like all day watching games after I'm done working. And I have to double check to see what I'm working. I'm working security early because there's consolation games in the morning, and the championship game will be at I think 4 in the afternoon or something like that on Sunday. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching. I'll be burned out on Derby by the time that's done. Yeah, it's a lot of Derby, but it's going to be fun. It's our own little chance to shine. And I was telling a friend, if you're out in Utah, Orem, Utah is going to be where they're holding the Western Division Continental Cup, the Western Continental Cup. And 2 of the top 4 teams are from Alberta, Canada. You have the number 1 seed is actually Calgary Roller Derby. And the number 3 seed is, and I love this, Eville, E-hyphen-V-I-L-L-E, Eville Roller Derby from Edmonton, Canada. And there's kind of like this whole love-hate relationship between Edmonton and Calgary. So I have a friend who lives outside of Edmonton, and I told her, I said, it could come down to Edmonton and Calgary squaring off in the championship, which should be pretty interesting. If there's no upsets, Edmonton has to play a team from Australia, who's actually the number 2 seed. They're the number 2 team. So if there's no upsets in those brackets, Edmonton would have to beat the number 2 team at the game. It'll be pretty evenly matched to see who actually does that. And that's how they do it. You seed where everyone's at, and then you put them together. And the idea is your top teams are usually going to be the ones competing for the top 3 positions, but you could always have an upset. There could always be an upset in there someplace. So sometimes there is. Sometimes it's pretty predictable. Although it changes. Like last year for champs, everyone expected it to come down again to the championship game would be between Rose City from Portland, Oregon, and VRDL, Victorian Roller Derby League, from Melbourne, Australia, home of Rachel Zimbakis. Well, not actually. She lives about 90 minutes outside of Melbourne, but yeah, I like to say that's her hometown in some ways. And everybody expected VRDL to come back and win a second time in a row to defend their championship from the year before. And Rose City beat them. And Rose City beat them by playing their game, which was really a remarkable thing to watch because VRDL has this game style that's really kind of unique. And if you were watching Rose City before that, they were playing like they normally do. And then they got into the championship bout with VRDL. And all of a sudden they begin playing the way they play, and it threw VRDL off completely. They had absolutely like no idea what to do. And you could see it. You could see that they were just like stopping their jammers and confusing them because their defense was difficult to read. So Rose City won the championship. And it'll be interesting to see who comes back because I think VRDL is the top 4 teams who are going to compete in Montreal. That's where the Champs is being held this year. Champs is being held in Montreal, Canada. Rose City is number 1. Gotham is number 2. Gotham, let me see. That's New York City, right? And then VRDL is that's Victoria Roller Derby League. They're down in Melbourne. They're number 3. And then number 4, strangely enough, these guys are really good. Arch Rival from St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah, they're really good. And the only reason they're not higher is their points are down due to the fact that they have 3 losses and 9 wins, whereas Rose City has 1 loss and 9 wins. So our Tribals actually played more games, and it's affected their points totals. But yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah. So there's that. Can't wait. I really can't wait. But what else is today? Today's a special day. Today's the 50th anniversary of landing and walking on the moon for the first time. And I have to be quite honest, I didn't know if I was going to make it to the 50th anniversary. Yeah, I was 12 years old at the time. And I remember where I was when we landed. We were actually in the car in Tennessee, driving somewhere and listening to it on the radio, in the car radio. And I was in the front seat, so got to hear it real well. And we did hear the touchdown because that was all. I mean, back at this time 50 years ago, that's all anybody was going on about. I mean, it was just a moon landing. That was it. Everybody was paying attention to the moon landing. I'm sure there's people today who'd be like, well, what are they covering up? You know, we're landing people on the moon to distract them from all the other shit that's going on. You know, there are some of us who can multitask and we keep track of it all. You know, it's like enough. But anyway, and then that night, we were staying in a campsite at Memphis Belle State Park, again in Tennessee, and watched the actual walk. I saw like the first 20 minutes of the walk before I conked out because it was like midnight. And yeah, it was incredible. Even though, you know, by standards today, the video transmission was so poor. You couldn't see, you know, it was all black and white, and it was all heavy shadows and bright sunlight and stuff like that. But it was still kind of amazing. Really. I mean, it's indescribable. I hated the fact that we actually were on vacation during the moon landing. My parents decided they were going to go on vacation then, because I would have been camped out in front of the TV the entire time, trying to watch as much as I could about the moon landing. Oh, Christ, this is ridiculous. And I remember being at my aunt's house and wanting to watch their final transmission from space as they were coming back from Earth. And it was starting to lightning outside, and my aunt would not turn on the TV. Because this is back in the days when they believed if you had your colored TV on, it would attract lightning. True story. Really. There were people back then who believed that if I have my colored TV on, it tends to draw lightning to the antenna on the roof. But I watched all the moon landings as much as you could. After Apollo 15, 16 and 17 were not broadcast that much. In fact, 16 was the first one where the moonwalks were actually happening during what they would call prime time. And they would show like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, but that was it. And I remember my father bitching the entire time because it was interrupting his shows. Whereas I'm like, I want to see him walking on the moon and driving on the moon too. And Apollo 16 was really kind of the goofy one because those guys were Young and Duke were doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Complaining about farting due to the magnesium drinks they were putting down. Yeah, there's a very famous incident where Charlie Duke and John Young were in the LEM and they were on an open box, which is an open mic. And they're bitching about how they have gas from this stuff they were drinking that was supposed to replenish the magnesium in their bodies. And NASA had to reprimand them later because they were saying this shit. And back then, if you had the right equipment, you could actually listen in on the astronauts, especially if they were on an open mic. They could close the mic and be on a one-on-one transmission to Houston. But if they were on, like they say, you're on Vox, which meant you were on an open mic and you were transmitting in the open, anyone who had the right kind of equipment could listen to the astronauts. And that's how we know it happened, because people who were listening in were like, holy shit, they're talking about farting and stuff like that. And both Duke and Young were kind of notorious for not having very circumstantial speech. Let's put it that way. Yeah, they used to swear a lot. I know during Apollo 10, when they were testing the LEM and they got to within 10 miles of the surface before they had to come back, they screwed up. Something screwed up on separation of the ascent and descent module, and Young and I believe it was Sanford were just like cussing their butts off as they're flying back, and they were like, what the hell was that? What the hell just happened? The only other one I know of, I know Pete Conrad, who's commander on Apollo 12, was actually told before he went up to make certain he checked his speech before he started speaking, because he was known to be probably the most foul-mouthed of all the astronauts going to the moon. Yeah. He tended to swear a lot. And before he went up, NASA was like, Pete, don't be cursing all the time. Please. They were a good one. They listened. One of the more famous things they talked about was they actually all had like beanies with propellers on them that they wore while they were going to the moon, just to like, you're always so busy inside that capsule, and you're basically sharing like a space the size of a car for like 8 days with two other guys. And so you had to do stuff to alleviate the boredom and the tedium, because one of the reasons why they're always doing like busy housekeeping stuff and sightings and stuff like that is because otherwise you're just sitting there for 24 hours with nothing to do. So they had like beanie propeller caps, and they said, I think it was Al Bean was the one who actually said one of the highlights was they were wearing them while they were working, listening to the Archies album. And if you ever watched the HBO special, old special From the Earth to the Moon, they showed that. They actually showed them in the capsule listening to Sugar Sugar by the Archies with their little beanie caps on. And they had developed a gizmo that would have allowed the moon camera that they took to actually do a self, an auto snap. That they couldn't actually set a timer on it. And they were going to get a picture of both of them standing in front of the Surveyor 3. And they didn't tell NASA about this. They were going to like surprise them when they brought the photo back. And unfortunately, they couldn't find the gizmo until they were getting ready to go back in. It was in the wrong pocket. Al Bean had it, and he couldn't find the gizmo. And so they didn't get that photo. I always felt kind of bad about that when I found out about it. Yeah, they were a nutty bunch. Astronauts either tend to go extremely serious, or they tend to get a little nutty and have like a weird sense of humor. So at least the old ones do. I don't know what the new ones are like today. I think the new ones are the same thing. They kind of want to put forward the fact that these are all individuals. Whereas the original Mercury astronauts, if you weren't acting like a test pilot 24/7, which is what happened with Scott Carpenter. He did not act like a test pilot 24/7. And he basically did one mission, and that was it. They wouldn't send him up again. So there you go. There you go. I just saw my screen slow down. But the biggest takeaway I have from the mission is the fact that in 3 more years, in 2022, will be the 50th anniversary of the last time we went to the moon. I mean, it really comes down to having sent 6 missions, 12 people to the moon from 1969 to 1972. And we've never went back. And as someone who read a lot of science fiction as a kid, as someone who was promised in writing, science fiction writing, that there would actually be hotels on the moon by 2001, it's been a real disappointment. And a lot of that goes back to right after the moon landings, when NASA and the president and the military were all trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And one of the things a lot of people forget is that it was all about a race to the moon to beat the Russians, who were the only other spacefaring country at the time. They were the only people that were capable of putting men into space. And I do mean men. I mean, even though they put one woman up, they're still putting men. It's all about the guys going up. And after we landed on the moon, the attitude of a lot of people was just like, okay, we've done it. They didn't look at it as long-term exploration. They looked at it as, we beat the Russians, yay. Well, let's move on. So when 12 and went up, there was this entire lack of concern. And it was even greater when 13 went up. I mean, 13 went up, and the only thing that made that mission interesting was because it was due to the fact that almost everyone on that mission died. But I can remember like 14 and 15 when they went up, and it was spectacular, but people were like, this is boring. You've seen one person walk on the moon, you've seen them all. The 15 was the first time they were actually driving on the moon. They had the rover, and I can remember watching. They showed like 3 days, all 8 hours of all three walks, and I remember them unfolding the rover from the LEM. It was all packed up in this little garage in one side of the LEM, and when they pulled it down, you saw the wheels pop open and all this other stuff, and they moved it off, and they were setting it up. And then when they were testing driving it, the camera was fixed, and you could see it drive back behind the LEM with one of the other astronauts. I think it was Jim Irwin. Scott was driving, and Irwin was chasing. And he's like getting photos, and he's watching stuff, and he's like making certain that the wheels are turning and everything else. And it was just amazing to me. It was really amazing. Apollo 15 was also the one where they proved one of Galileo's theorems about the speed of falling objects within a gravitational field. And if you know that theorem, you would know that Galileo dropped balls of different sizes and weight off of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. At least that's the legend. But he did do it. He dropped them from heights and stated that in a gravitational field, if you do not have to account for friction, all objects fall at the same rate, regardless of size. If I drop a pebble and a 100-pound ball off a building at the same time, they should hit the ground at the same time. Now, we know the pebble is liable to hit some resistance, so there will be this, just tenths of a second between the 100-pound ball hitting the ground and the pebble hitting the ground, because the pebble is going to meet with wind resistance. So on Apollo 15, they tested this theorem, and they took one of their geological rock hammers, and they took a falcon feather, which was actually taken from the falcon who is the mascot for the Air Force Academy. And the reason they did that was because Apollo 15 were all Air Force personnel. It was the first all Air Force and the only all Air Force mission. So they got a falcon feather from the mascot at the Air Force Academy. And Scott, I can't remember his first name, said, he was the commander of the mission, said, if I release these both at the same time, since there's no air here, they both should hit the ground at the same time, because we're in a gravitational field with no wind resistance. And he released them both at the same time, and they both hit the ground at the same time, which I thought was so cool to watch. And he was like, Mr. Galileo was right. Apparently Galileo was right. And they did. They just dropped and they fell at the same time. And it was real weird to watch it, because, in our atmosphere, that feather is going like this all the way down. It's stuff like that just, geeked me out. I loved it. I was really in my realm during those years, because I get to watch the moonwalks. And now there's a very distinct possibility I'll be dead before we ever go back to the moon. And like I said, a lot of it arose from NASA wanted to continue with something called Apollo Applications, which was basically taking existing Apollo hardware and using it to beef up the program to do long-term scientific exploration. Skylab was part of that. But Skylab was actually going to be a much more massive undertaking. I think at one point they were actually talking about putting up like 3 modules the size of Skylab and linking them together so that you would have like one super module. And this would mean that they would have to still keep building Saturn V rockets or even more powerful rockets, because they were talking about going back to the moon. And there was what they called the LEM, the advanced LEM for Apollo applications, which could actually stay on the moon for 6 days. It would have a little larger living area inside to make it more comfortable. But the whole idea was to put someone on the moon for upwards of almost a week and allow them to be able to drive out 10 miles from the LEM to be able to do stuff. And they were looking at going to different sites, like going to the crater Copernicus. They were actually, if we had through Apollo 20, the areas that we would have explored would have been really crazy. But Apollo applications was meant to go back to the moon and kind of stay there, and then use Skylab as an Earth science platform. But they wanted to also use Skylab as a jumping off point for Mars. It's like you could start assembling bits and pieces of the Mars mission there, and then send people off. So it would have been Apollo applications merging into going to Mars. And the military was kind of sold on this thing called the space shuttle. They wanted it to be able to put payloads into space a lot cheaper than using normal rockets. Nixon was not a big space enthusiast. He didn't really understand it. He didn't quite get it. So to him, he wanted to go for the low-hanging fruit. He also, at that time, didn't want to have to fight with people both in his party and the Democratic Party over funding for continued space missions. I mean, believe it or not, up to the time of Apollo 11, we spent about $2 billion going to the moon, which today is like, we have aircraft carriers that cost like 5 times that. And we don't think about building them. And so they went with the low-hanging fruit. They went with the space shuttle program and pretty much pissed away everything else. And that was it. Once we got back into low orbit, we decided we didn't want to leave. And I can remember at first when the space shuttle was going up, it was really kind of cool. And then you realize they're not doing anything different than Gemini did, only they're doing it with a lot more people. Yeah, it was a disappointment. I remember there was a writer who said he was watching the one mission where they were trying to capture the Solar Max and repair it. And he said his wife was like completely disinterested in what was going on. He's like, honey, why aren't you watching this? And this is really amazing. And she's like, we've been to the moon. How is this more amazing than that? This is just trying to work on a satellite in space, in orbit. We've been to the moon. And that kind of solidified the whole feeling. It was like, yeah, we've been to the moon, and now we're screwing around being repairmen in space. Which should have been like 2 completely separate things. There should have been an exploration partner, should have been like guys who go up into space to repair shit. And that's kind of, when you look at it now, the current setup between what Elon Musk is doing with SpaceX, where we're going to put your people up into space, we'll send you supplies. And that actually allows NASA to work on other things. And it's actually not a bad fit. I'm hoping to see the Dragon 2 fly soon with people in it. That would be really great. Because if you think about it, we have not had our own space transport capability for like what? I think the last time the shuttle flew was 2011. I'd have to go back and check, but yeah, we've been begging for flights from the Russians. It's really kind of disappointing when you think about it, where we should be 50 years after we first landed on the moon as compared to where we are. And as Arthur Clarke once pointed out, it's not a matter of science and it's not a matter of technology, it's a matter of political will. And that's really what's happened. Especially during the 80s, spaceflight and the space shuttle was seen as a way of advertising how great the U.S. was. But we were just advertising and we could go into space and fix shit. We weren't really doing anything. It was all the unmanned probes were doing everything. And that's not bad. Unmanned probes should be doing a lot of shit. It's just that there should be a lot more of them. As far as I'm concerned, there should be a lot more. We should be doing a lot more exploration. If given the choice between spending $15 billion on an aircraft carrier and its fleet, I could use that $15 billion to build a lot of unmanned probes to different planets. And maybe even like a few manned missions, which we should be doing. I just want to see us go back to the moon. I would like to live long enough to watch us walk on the moon again. I really would. I don't think I'm ever going to get to see us go to Mars. I had hoped as a kid, and even like into my 20s and 30s, I'll live long enough to see us walk on Mars. Live long enough to see us walk on another planet. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'll be dead before that ever happens. So, disappointment. You gotta live with it. What can you do? Okay, well, I need to get going to Carlisle's. I need to throw my shit on and grab my water bottle and grab my Strong Athletic Queer tank top that I'm going to work out in today. And then I got to shut my computer down because I'm going to go take my computer with me to do all this shit. It's going to be fun. And then I'm going to work out, and I'll be back here at the Hacienda probably around 6 tonight. I don't know. Around 4 tonight. I'll probably be famished. So we'll see what happens. So I'll talk to you all later. See you next week. Bye-bye.